Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the July Pork Checkoff Producer webinar. I'm Rich Deaton, a producer from Ohio, also a member of the National Pork Board of Directors, and also chair the Real Pork Barriers Task Force. It is an honor to have you join us today to learn more about real pork in our myth-busting content series featuring Eric Stonestreet. As a reminder, this webinar is being recorded for the purpose of sharing with producers who are unable to attend. You will remain muted throughout the duration of the webinar, and all questions can be submitted via chat to be answered at a later time. Next slide, please. Our speakers today include Jacque Matsen, Senior VP of Communications for the National Pork Board, Jennifer Jacque, editor of Farm Bureau's Pork, and Emmy-winning actor Eric Stonestreet. Next slide, please. This is our antitrust statement. All the work the National Pork Board does complies with the Sherman Act. The best rule is, if you have a question whether a certain matter can be discussed, first clear it with an attorney, and for further information, contact National Pork Board office. Next slide, please. This is our National Pork Board disclaimer. The pork checkoff funds are being used to host this webinar with the purpose of helping pork producers understand the upcoming myth-busting campaign and partnership with National Pork Board and Eric Stonestreet. It'll give you the chance to hear from Eric himself about his enthusiasm for the project and the pork industry. The views expressed by the guest speakers are theirs and not those of the National Pork Board. Next slide, please. We as consumers ourselves understand too well the barrage of information coming at us every day. Different consumer audiences prioritize different purchase factors and information sources. The National Pork Board, on behalf of the producers, consider a wealth of research to better understand audiences to target and how to talk to them about pork and pig farming in a way they can relate to. As part of the Real Pork Barriers Task Force, over the last several months, I had the chance to set in on a couple consumer focus groups aimed at understanding the perceptions of pork production. That was a real eye-opening experience. When the consumers were asked what was stopping them from purchasing more pork than what they are currently purchasing, the common concern was the cleanliness of pigs, or, quote, pigs are dirty. Also, they had worried about what the pigs were fed, what they were eating, the concern that pigs were eating garbage, and other misconceptions about how we raise hogs. But with less than 2% of the US population involved in production agriculture, it goes to show how big the gap between producers and consumers really is. Next slide, please. When thinking about the need to bridge this gap and address the misconceptions in a way that resonates with consumers, and finding the right partnership was key. Eric Stonestreet is an excellent fit for this role. As a Kansas native and a 4-H alumni and Emmy-winning actor, Eric Stonestreet's childhood friends will always remember him as the pig farmer. Best known for his role as Cameron, or Cam, in Modern Family, Eric grew up showing pigs in 4-H, which taught him at a young age there's more to living than just taking care of yourselves. I had the pleasure of attending the video shoot last week and visiting with Eric a little bit. He mentioned this, which I wanted to share. And later on, Eric will correct any mistakes or misunderstanding I had in this. Eric mentioned it, said that when he was a teenager, he told his dad he wanted to get a job. So his dad went out and brought home a half a dozen Chester White gilts for Eric to raise. Eric went ahead and used these Chester White gilts and bred them to a Poland China boar. And one year at the fair, I believe Eric had the both grand champion and reserve champion, and a third pig also won another ribbon. Eric in this campaign will be using idioms and phrases associated with pigs and pig farmers as a conversation starter to combat existing misinformation about modern pork production. Now, I'll let Jacque tell you more about what to expect from this campaign. Jacque?
Great, thank you so much, Rich. Next slide, please. I'm under no illusion that you did not join this webinar to listen to me talk through charts and graphs, so I'll make this quickly, go through this quickly. We use Checkoff funded insights and research to understand how to best target this great information, because if we're going to invest in a campaign with producer dollars, we want to, of course, make sure that we're targeting the right audiences and that we're reaching people with meaningful information. So we do monthly with Checkoff resources some consumer tracking data to understand where perceptions and attitudes are around our product and our industry. And here's what we found is that about 33% of consumers say that they have reduced their pork consumption over the last month, and another 25% say that they're planning to. Now, this is perception and it's recall-based questions. It's not based on sales data. We know sales of pork remain strong. Here's what this tells us, though. These people are fans of pork, and yet there are reasons why they feel like they should hesitate to buy or consume more. And here's the reasons. When you ask them why, they say things like nutrition concerns, ethical concerns, as well as safety concerns. And as Rich mentioned, those have their root in misperceptions about how pigs are raised, what pigs eat, and the process from farm to fork, as well as the people who are raising the product and whether they can be trusted to deliver a safe product at the end of the day. So on the next slide, you'll see that these folks, these who we call at-risk consumers, are a primary target for this effort and the great information we're going to be working on with Eric Stonestreet. You'll see that 20% of people are what we consider at risk. That's basically all the people who say they're likely to reduce their consumption and who gave us a reason that we can impact. Now, we can't do anything if the price of our product is unattainable. We can help share the value of the product, but we certainly don't want somebody to down select pork because of a concern about ethical production, safety, or nutrition. So we're really targeting those people who are at risk for reasons we can easily overcome by sharing our story. We also believe we can get back that 11% of folks who are in that past impact piece of the pie. And then really importantly, I know we say safe for the 65%, but we can't rest on our laurels there. We have to be very proactive about addressing questions we know people have about our producers as well as our process, so that we don't lose any additional consumers who start to feel some guilt and wonder if they should be consuming less as a result. On the next slide, you'll see an example of who we're talking about. These are the characteristics of our at-risk consumer. So through our research, we're able to really segment the population and understand that those who have concerns are more likely to have children at home. They're about equally male and female, but they're not surprisingly more likely to live in urban and suburban areas. They're highly educated. They're very well employed and well off, and highly educated. These are the folks we're looking to reach with the messages that we'll be developing in partnership with Eric. On the next slide, you'll see what that will look like. We are producing social and digital content. You guys know this is the currency for how you reach consumers today. The amount of screen time people have with their phone or their desktop computer, an iPad, or even streaming services on TVs now, it's really critical that this information be made available in social and digital formats. So we will be posting these series of videos that we're creating to our own social media, as well as Eric has agreed to use his social media, and he has millions of followers on his social media accounts, of course, due to his popularity. And we'll be putting some advertising in place to make sure the people we want to reach are able to see this information from Eric on behalf of the industry. We also have a media day coming up in October for Pork Month. We're really excited that Eric has also agreed to participate in a media day where we'll get an opportunity to pitch media outlets across the country to interview Eric about his experiences on the farm, learning about modern production, as well as his experience growing up around animals and what that's meant for his character and what he's achieved as an adult. And then it's important to mention that we will have additional resources as well. We know that 5 videos may feel like it's just scratching the surface of the many myths that we battle with as an industry. And we're not stopping at 5 videos. We are also looking to recruit and train third-party spokespeople who can provide us additional scientific evidence and reassurance to consumers about other topics around safety and environment, for example. And we're also producing additional content for the Pork Cares website so that we can continue to share a variety of aspects of our good story about how our product is raised. But we do certainly believe that these first 5 videos that we are able to do with Eric will get us started off on the right foot, build a lot of momentum for the positive story we're trying to tell, so that as we seek to do some of these additional efforts as well, that they get a little more oomph and a little more visibility because we've started off so strong. I want to talk to you a little bit more about the videos themselves on the next slide, because we talk about myth busting, which sounds a little defensive. And what I want to reassure you is that we're going to consumers with a very positive, fun, approachable message. Here's the idea. We have all these sayings, as Rich mentioned, idioms that we don't even second guess. We just say them in our day-to-day lives in our common language, things like pigsty or pig out. And we don't stop and think about where those phrases came from, what they mean, and whether they even remotely resemble what production looks like today. So we're using those idioms, if you will, as a starting point for our conversation with consumers. And Eric had a lot of fun with this content last week on the shoot, I could tell, because it is an approachable way to start the conversation. So essentially what we're doing is we're redefining these terms, redefining the rural dictionary, if you will, for consumers. The 5 terms we're starting with are pigsty. So we're addressing that myth that pigs are dirty that Rich mentioned, and we're redefining that to mean clean, care for the animals, a safe environment for the animals. We are taking on when pigs fly. What if that meant something that's already happening because we're that advanced? So showing people the incredible technology that's part of our industry today. Pig out. Rich mentioned consumers have concerns about what pigs eat because they make that connection, what the pigs eat. And then if I eat pork, is that pork safe? Is it healthy for me? So we're going to explain that pig out actually means a very healthy, balanced, prescribed diet. Hog wild has, of course, come to mean excess, go crazy, no regard with abandon. But what if it meant that we were going crazy with really good practices that benefit the environment, for example? And that's what we're going to redefine hog wild to mean. And capitalist pig, this one is perhaps the most important. The Real Pork Barriers Task Force that Rich recommended that we start by addressing this ubiquitous term, factory farming, that has come to mean large, insensitive corporations who don't care about the animals is how pigs are raised today. And we, of course, know that's just not true. And by taking on the term capitalist pig, we're able to say, actually, what if that meant a caring individual who really is invested in providing a good workplace for their workers and giving back to their community. So a really important myth for us to address, and doing so through that terminology. And I have to show you here while we're on this slide, this is the Rural Dictionary that Eric was using to redefine terms. It's no small thing to lift. He can affirm that. And I think that this is just the start of us explaining to consumers how many of these terms don't mean what they thought they meant. So with that, I want to talk to you just a little bit on the next slide about what you can do when these videos come out. We just shot, as Rich mentioned, these videos last week. So we're looking forward to starting to release them in the beginning of September. And that timing is really intentional. It's back to school time. It's time when folks take back to researching online, doing reports for school, looking up information for meals at home. So that's a very intentional timing in September. And then of course, leading into Pork Month and to the end of the year. So we're going to release each one of these one at a time so that each one has an opportunity for us to build some momentum and attention around it. And here's what you can do. Follow and engage online. You should already be receiving the Pork Checkoff Weekly Update e-newsletters. Please, if you're not already, follow us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, because we will post this content and we will continue to provide you updates. And then what we would ask that you do is engage with that content, like, comment, reshare. If you see somebody asking a question as a result of a video and you have an answer, chime in and join the conversation. That's really important to have your personal stories to back up the content that we're working on with Eric. And then finally, we're working really closely with our state pork associations. And so be sure you're engaging with them, following their websites and social media as well, and working with them on ways that maybe you could serve as a spokesperson in your state to help further this content. So with that, we will get to the real stars of the webinar on the next slide. I am so excited to introduce Jennifer Jacque with Farm Journal's Pork. Jennifer got to kick off this campaign in style back in May when she had a great interview with Eric, and they connected and became fast friends over their love of Kansas State. As an Iowa Stater, I had to sit there a little bit and go, okay. But we love our land-grant universities, right? All the love to all of them. And they had such a good connection that we couldn't think of a better person to lead us through our Q&A with Eric than Jennifer. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Jennifer, to ask the questions. And Eric, thank you so much for making time to join us on the webinar today to answer these questions, which actually came from producers. We solicited questions from our board as well as our task force. So again, thank you for making time to do this series with us and for making time for today's webinar. Jennifer, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. I hope I'm not too starstruck. It's one thing to get to talk to Eric Stonestreet on the phone, but it's absolutely another thing to see you on the screen. So I'll try to remain as cool as I can here.
All right, you're doing good so far. I'll try to be as cool as I can too.
Okay, I expect that. Well, I'm so excited to hear about your experience last week and being out on that South farm. What was your opinion of it? How was it different than you expected?
Well, as Rich was saying, I had pigs come into my life at a really young age. He was close on his story, but not quite accurate. So I will tell you what exactly happened is I wanted a job and we went and got 60 feeder pigs first. And we built a fence, and all of a sudden my dad said, here's your job. It's in your backyard. You don't have to travel anywhere to do your job. So I was in the pig business very young, I think around the 4th grade. And then that transitioned into getting some gilts and then having them artificially bred, and then eventually got a boar. So my operation ever was as a young man was 7 sows and a boar, but that kept me very, very busy throughout my high school career. And then when I went off to Kansas State, we got rid of the pig operation because it was just too much for my mom and dad to take care of, because I was primarily doing it for 4-H purposes, to raise pigs for the fair, and then also feeder pigs and to sell them off cycle. But wow, going to the pig farm there was incredible. I was so excited to see the advances, obviously made since my hobbyist farm, but just in pig farming in general, it was truly incredible, truly impressed with the cleanliness, and never had to shower in and shower out and wear booties everywhere I went, even before I got to the barn. I had joked and said earlier that I've had the great benefit and pleasure of visiting very sick children across this nation, and I felt more clean and more sanitized going into the hog barn than I have going into hospitals across America. So people can rest assured of that for visitors and farmers in general. Very clean going into that sow barn.
Well, what impressed you the most about the farm?
Well, look, farmers are my people. Big people are my people. I knew when this came across my plate, and a lot of things do, no pun intended, come across my plate. But this was exciting for me because it was an opportunity to re-tether, myself to where it all started for me. I have a bio that's somewhere out there that says, I grew up as far away from the bright lights of Hollywood as you can. I mean, while I'm from Kansas City, I'm from the most rural part of California, or Kansas City, and our pig operation was, in the country. So my point is I started there. I started in Western Wyandotte County, moved to Manhattan, Kansas, was, in college there. And then that took me to Chicago and took me to LA and into a crazy career that I think most people probably watching have ideas about what Hollywood's like. And I would say that a lot of that is probably true. And then a tremendous amount of it is just like this. We need to correct people's perception of who is in Hollywood and what kind of people make up the entertainment business. It's not everybody that you always think it is. So this was an opportunity for me to make a full circle moment. I love full circle moments. And this was a chance for me to come back to exactly where my roots and where I started from, because essentially that was the notion for my dad. He wanted to teach me responsibility. He wanted to teach me how to take care of something else, that life meant something more than just my 3-foot perimeter. Right. And I think that's the value of what I learned. But then coming back to such a huge farm with so many pigs and seeing that same person, right? A person that cares for the animals and a person that takes pride in the work and the community and his worker and their workers and their family. I was looking forward to reconnecting and retethering to that. And that's exactly what I got to do last week.
Well, I don't know about you, but I went to K-State not too long after you did. And, as I look back at the pork industry over the last couple decades, I can't believe how much it has evolved and how much the industry has changed. And so what were some of your thoughts as you were out there on the sow farm in terms of how far the pig industry has come since you were raising pigs?
Well, look, I mean, here's the thing. And I think Rich and I talked about it, just talking bluntly about how people feel about, you either eat meat or you don't, and you either have a reason why you don't eat meat or you don't. And some of it might be based in, feelings towards animals. And my point is no one loves animals more than people that dedicate their lives to taking care of them. Feeding the world is a necessity, right? It was like an inarguable fact that people need protein and need to eat to survive. We have these massive teeth in our mouth for a reason. So I can't speak to anything like that, but speaking of animals, I hear my dog coming. I hope he doesn't interrupt this. Oh, yeah, she's going to corral Roscoe. I have a Queensland Blue Heeler dog that is very rambunctious and very excitable, and maybe he just heard something that triggered him. I don't know. But so we talked about how, conservation and care for animals is so important. And that's what I'm blown away by, is the integrity that farmers approach the necessity of the world, right? Of raising food to feed all of us. And it's not what people would imagine it is. I mean, there's there's given, like in my world, there's something called given circumstances, right? When you're acting in a scene, you know what the reality is. And the reality is we eat pork. But how do we do that in a way that is caring for the animal and taking good care of the animal while it's here on this earth to serve its purpose? And that's what I'm impressed by. I mean, I'm not surprised by it. I've known farmers my whole life. And so I was just happy to be out there and see it on such a large scale. That hasn't changed, and it never will change.
Sure. Well, let's kind of keep going in that direction there, because you mentioned the disconnect that there is between consumers and farming. And why do you think that disconnect exists?
Well, I mean, we can make all kinds of guesses on that. I mean, I think we can really boil it down to most people don't really care, right? I mean, most people don't have the desire and knowledge to learn how things end up on the table. I mean, and again, that's I had the benefit of growing up with someone who decided, well, you're going to learn how to do that. And, you know, I think it would serve the world, America, everyone wonderfully if everybody had to spend a week on a farm getting up at 4:30 in the morning to have breakfast so you can be out by 5 and back in until the sun goes down. I mean, when we were driving back from the farm, I really was, because my agent from California was there, and she's from Michigan. So it's not like she's some highfalutin, you know, New York City type person or something. But like, you know, I said, isn't it kind of comforting to know that your schedule out here is by the day, right? The sun comes up and you go to work, and the sun goes down and you read the paper and you go to sleep. Nature's clock, there's something very comforting about that. I don't get to live by that clock all the time in my career, because they have things called lights and they have things called sound stages. So there is something very comforting to know that, you know, the day is the day, and you fill it with as much productivity as you can. And I think people would be absolutely astonished what goes into a day's work of a pig farm, of a beef farm, of a corn land farm, ground, whatever. So I think it's because people don't really think about it. That's where the disconnect comes from, because it's either not convenient to think about it, or it might be too hard to think about it. I don't know. But I think no doubt about it that you expose someone, and that's what we do, right? That's how we change people's minds. That's how we open people's hearts. That's how we open people's eyes, is we let them in and experience. In my world, it's usually with comedy. Like, I open people's minds and hearts and eyes with something funny. And then they're like, well, now I'm curious about that. So I think it just, apathy is where the disconnect comes from. And farmers are the opposite of apathetic, right?
You make me think of, I was writing a story the other day, and I talked about that kind of tired that you have. That's that good kind of tired that makes you feel like you did something worthwhile. And I think that's one of the privileges that pig farmers get, to feel that tired that really has a purpose, you know?
Well, let me make it very clear. I identified early on, and I'm thankful for my pig operation, but for many reasons. I bought a 1955 Chevy before any of my friends could afford anything like that. So there were so many benefits to it, but I want to be very transparent and very clear that the one thing it showed me is manual day-to-day, morning to night labor is not for me. So I don't want any farmers out there walking away from here, the pork producers out there thinking, well, that guy, he's a pig farmer through and through. I love pigs. I love farming. But my dad said when I was very young that I could watch people work all day long. And I own that, but I'm thankful that I learned what my vocation was not. And that was not going to be, being as a hardworking farmer as everyone watching this is. I needed to find my space in the world. So again, that's why me going off and figuring out what I wanted to do in my life with my life, and then having the opportunity to bring that back to something that I'm clearly interested in and clearly love, was such an exciting opportunity for me.
So you're going to be talking to consumers about myths and misconceptions. And so let's talk a little bit about what you think is the biggest myth or misconception about pig farming that you really hope people understand through this campaign.
Well, the campaign will speak for itself. I mean, there on Modern Family, if people are watching and know the show, they know that my character was from the southern Missouri and grew up on a much different kind of pig farm than I visited last week. But we had animals and pigs, and there's lots of rural jokes. And just in case anyone's watching, no matter where they're from, people always ask, I'm from Kansas. Why isn't Cameron Tucker from Kansas? And why is he from Missouri? And see, I know Hollywood writers very well, and I knew that eventually they would want to make fun of where Cameron Tucker's from. So I said, we're going to make fun of Missouri, not Kansas. So we're going to put it all on those Missouri folk, not on the Kansas folk. Irony now is, where do I live? Missouri. 100% true. Yep. So that didn't work out well for me. I'm here in beautiful Missouri. So what I can't remember what your question was, and now I got off on my tangent.
No, that's okay. Biggest myth or misconception.
Yeah. So on the show, there were two things I was always in charge of, right? Clowning and anything pig related, because I've always enjoyed correcting people on pig myths and just things that people don't understand about pigs. One of my things was always to remind people that the pigs aren't in mud because they're dirty animals. They do not have sweat glands, people. They have to cool off some way. And that was, I used to water my pigs. Our water bill at home, I would just go out and put them through the car wash. I would always say to cool them off. So I've always been correcting things that people think about pigs. This is a bigger, grander scale as far as just changing people's paradigm of how they think about hogs. But I've always enjoyed telling people how smart pigs are and how mine were trainable. I could whistle and off they'd come. The quickest way to a pig's brain is through his stomach, is what I think they always say, right? And so all my pigs were always well trained, and just always telling people that they're not a dirty animal. That's the biggest thing that bums me out, is people just think that pigs are wallowing in mud holes and pits, and that I love telling people that pigs create bathrooms in their own area. On my farm, there was a designated area where pigs would go to the bathroom. And we would spread lime there all the time because we technically were in the city limits, and I was an illegal pig farmer. A lot of people didn't know that. I had an illegal pig operation. You can Google an episode of David Letterman that I was on, when I told him that story, that it wasn't until later that I found out we were raising pigs in the city limits. And that's why we kept the smell down as much as we could with the lime.
I love it. Well, during our earlier conversation, you shared something that has really stuck with me, and I think was just such a great point. You talked about that there's more to living than to just taking care of yourself. And so let's just talk about that a little bit. What did you learn from your experience of raising and showing pigs?
Well, first of all, like just the people you're around, right? In 4-H, I'm a big supporter of 4-H. FFA is another version of 4-H that some people might be familiar with more. So you're surrounded by like-minded people, right? People that have the same values, towards animals and feelings towards animals, while understanding the necessity of animals and not pretending like we live in some different world where we don't need to eat food. So that's one, is just meeting, great people. And then that whole idea of 60 pigs relied on me, a 5th grader, to feed and water them before and after school. We didn't have all the equipment right in the beginning. So I was hand feeding, protein and corn and different things early on. I had barrel waters. Remember the 55-gallon barrels with you drill a hole in the bottom and then you'd screw the threaded water in, and the pig would, they still use something similar, I'm sure, someplace, but that's what we had. And I had to make sure that that water was always filled, and I had to make sure those troughs were filled with corn in the morning and the night. And I just learned, like I said earlier, that life wasn't just about me. Life was about the sustainability of those pigs on our property. So I had to take care of them. And I don't know the specific ways of that, how that translated into my life, but there's just no doubt that the work ethic that was instilled in me through raising hogs was relatable to my career, and learning how to apply myself and, realize to look out for other people. And, people in my business, our business, Hollywood, whatever you want to say, people think, well, it's about your talent and your abilities. And it is definitely at some point it comes down to that. But it also comes down to conveying yourself in a way that makes people want to work with you, right? Because there's a lot of talented people. There's a lot of funny people. There's a lot of handsome people, however you want to define what people are. But what sets you apart is who you are and who you come off as, right? And there's just no doubt that me growing up in Kansas, going to Kansas State, raising pigs, being around people that had animals and farms molded me into a person that people, genuinely think is probably a decent guy and wants to be around. And you can spot those people in Hollywood in a second. The guy that works for me is from Iowa, and he just same kind of like-minded thing. And you identify those people that are willing to just get to work. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, where are you from? Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, Michigan, somewhere around there. Yeah. How'd you know? It's like, you're going to go as far in this business as you want because of your clear ability to just get it done and go to work. Because people always focus on the show portion of show business, right? And my pig business, and my dad taught me very early on at a very young age that business is very important. And I applied that when I got into show business.
Yeah. Well, it's County Fair Week for us. And I've been thinking a lot about those experiences that young people get showing pigs, because it's so much a part of like my life as a mom right now. And we've just gotten done going to quite a few shows in the last 4 weeks. And as I came back and reflected on it, one of the things that stood out to me was just the confidence that young people get from showing livestock too. And it's just this inner confidence, which I think really goes back to your point of, it's just not all about you. And so your confidence just isn't in yourself, it's in something that's bigger. And
yeah, I mean, the fair was invaluable. I knew my parents, if talked to my family and friends, they knew I was destined to be some kind of performer pretty early on. I mean, my grandma was making me clown suits and costumes when I was really young. So performance was in my blood, but no doubt, there's just absolutely no doubt that being in 4-H and having to give speeches and get up in front of 25 or 30 people on a regular basis and talk about things and learn about things, a demonstrative speech, all the different kinds of speeches that we had to give. And then being in an arena, showing a pig with sweat pouring down my back in the middle of August, and being judged on my work and my dedication to those animals and grooming them and taking care of them. I mean, all that matters. And I wish everybody could do that. I know it's not possible, but I do wish that for kids. You just meet a kid from FFA and 4-H, and you're usually impressed with their demeanor and their stature and their view on life.
so let's go back to why the pork industry. One of my questions to you when we first talked was, I know you have a lot of great causes you support. There's a lot of things that you do, and there's a lot of options that you have. So why do you want to work with the pork industry?
Well, like I said before, an opportunity for me to get back to where I'm from and, where I grew up. And then also because I know how hardworking pork producers are. And I don't like those stats that people were putting up that have an idea that, they don't eat pigs because pigs are dirty or pigs are fed slop or something like that. So, I'd like to help change people's minds there. And, it is a choice. Like I'm not looking to make anyone do anything, but I would certainly hate for you to not be supporting pork producers for the wrong reason. If you're fully educated on something and then make your decision, well, I don't want to eat pork, then I'm 100% supportive of that. But I certainly wouldn't want people to miss out on, delicious pork. I mean, let's cut to the chase. Pig tastes good, right? And I would hate for them to not be supporting our farmers here in the United States that work so hard to deliver a quality product to the table.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you've also talked a little bit about is how much you love pigs, but also respect their important role. So let's talk about how do you, some people compare pigs to family pets and they use that as a reason to not eat meat. How would you respond to that?
Well, that's rough because look, I've worked with trained pigs in LA, and they're a different kind of pig, obviously, than what we're used to. And like I said, pigs are trainable, but pigs are also a farm animal. And we know that they serve a purpose, a higher purpose, a greater purpose. And I hate hearing that people think that, and that doesn't take away my feeling. If someone wants to have a pig and give it proper home and understand that cute little 25-pound pig is eventually going to be a 500-pound pig, but that has a cycle, right? Let's not put that into some weird, non-realistic realm. Like, we all have a cycle. We're all on a cycle. But I think, again, on a farm where I have to say I was in a cooler temperature. I just shot a show that's going to be on Fox in January. A kind of a game show thing. You'll see it. Hope you like it. It's called Domino Masters. And I was joking that I was more comfortable in that sow barn than I was on the soundstage there in Los Angeles. So it's important for people to understand. It's like pigs have a purpose, animals have a purpose, farm animals have a purpose for us. But like I said earlier, these farms are doing the best they can, in the pork board and the association and pork producers of America are doing the best they can to make sure these pigs are comfortable and living a life that's nutritious, right? They're eating good quality foods in good quality, clean environments. I think that's what people would be blown away by. Is it's not anything like you picture in your head as far as cleanliness goes. So I hate to hear when people think of that they don't eat pigs because of their pets. I can relate to that, for obvious reasons. I'm a pet lover. I've had pets my whole life. So I get it, but it's just not the same.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to having more of those discussions and listening to you talk about that, because I think that's going to be really impactful for people. Modern agriculture, or big ag, is often used in a negative way. And so based on your experience at the farm that you were at last week and your agricultural background, how would you explain what modern agriculture is to those who aren't very close to it?
Yeah, again, that's just a disconnect that I think people have. Like we don't have there's so many things that I don't know about that I yet have an opinion about, right? I have this opinion about something that I've never done or participated in my life. So I think it really boils down to people's ideas without any further of a dive into it. So you kind of can forgive them a little bit, except if they're not ever willing to learn about it. So I would say, that's that. And then, just the environmental aspect of modern farms, using the manure to fertilize crops that then, feed the pigs, using less water, all those things in modern farming. I think people because again, I hit on this before, it's about conservation, right? And I think people are always blown away. Who are the real conservationists in our world? I don't want to get into hunting and all that stuff because I'm personally not a hunter, but all my friends are, and like true conservationists are there. So it's the same thing with farmers, as far as I'm concerned. It's like they're always looking of ways to conserve land, conserve water, to make the best of what they have. 4-H term, to make the best better. So I think it's, again, just boils down to getting out there, you know, and just seeing how it is and what it is versus having an opinion and then never doing anything to verify your opinion.
Yeah. So the word on the street is that your farm was a very popular place to hang out.
Yeah.
Sounded like your buddies were always wanting to come over to your place. So why do you think that was so? And kind of expand on what those favorite memories on your farm were.
Well, you know, I had different groups of friends. I had school friends that were always very interested in what was going on over at the Stonestreet house. And more importantly, sometimes what was in the freezer, what was in the refrigerator,
Yes.
and what was for dinner. Because we never were lacking for fresh pork and for fresh beef. Like that was just the case. And then I had my 4-H friends that none of that was interesting to, because they all had that themselves. So you see, I really did skate this kind of line between the city, Kansas City, and the rural part of Kansas City. I was right on the border. So, you know, I think people are interested. And, you know, I gravitate towards people that ask questions. I gravitate towards people that are interested livers. You know, that's how I think I became an actor, is because I live an outward and upright life. I'm always looking around. I'm always interested in what's going on around me. I always want to learn from people. And so I've always been gravitated towards people that ask questions. And I had friends that always wanted to come over and you know, I was the only guy on Saturday that was burning sacks or cutting hoe and thistle in the pasture or fixing fence or things like that. So they weren't too eager to help with that stuff. But they were always eager to come over and help me feed and help me wash my pigs. We'd load them up in the trailer and I'd cool them down, you know, and they always loved that. And just doing more of the fun stuff. Nobody was over helping me hold them when they were getting castrated. I can tell you that.
I hear
Never
you.
had anybody who offered to do that.
No volunteers. No
No.
volunteers. Well, your buddy Walker wanted to know how much pork you consume on a daily basis.
Okay, I know Walker.
Yeah.
What's up, Walker? Walker's a good guy. Okay, let's see. Well, I had pork today. I had a salami and capicola sandwich. So there's the little pork. Didn't have any pork for breakfast. What did I have for breakfast? Oh, I did. I had some. I had a couple pieces of ring bologna. Well, that's probably beef. That was probably beef. Sorry. But I would say pork for sure, once or twice a meal. No doubt about it. Ribs, being in Kansas City, I'm a big pork rib guy. I love beef ribs. I've never even heard of beef ribs. You go to Texas and they serve you beef ribs. Sorry, Texas farmers out there, but I'm a pork rib guy, and I'm a full 5 and down guy. My favorite barbecue serves slabs of ribs that are 5 and down, right? A lot of places will serve 3 and down and then trim them into a St. Louis cut. Not a fan as much of that as I am a good, big, fat, smoked 5 and down rib.
That sounds
Walker. I see you, bro.
Well, another question that I have, somebody has asked, what was your favorite chore on the farm? And I'd be curious to know that too. You don't like to burn sacks.
Well, favorite chore. I mean, everybody likes, you know, we had, by the end of my farm career, we had feeders. So I was only filling the feeders up, you know, maybe once a week but in the beginning, there's nothing better than taking big 5-gallon buckets of feed, you know, to pigs that were really excited to eat. Like being the guy, the person that's sustaining an animal and seeing the pleasure of that, of how excited they are to eat. You can't beat feeding and watering. You know, I love I love, for my fair pigs, I love washing them. I love grooming and washing the pigs, because as we know, they have such funny personalities and great personalities that they would find the enjoyment in that as well. So love that. I like cleaning out the barn a little bit, but not that much. I wasn't into that. Obviously, when they were farrowing, I loved going down in the night and checking on a sow that was in the middle of giving birth and seeing the little piglets. I loved that time of year. All of it really at the time, to the point until I wanted to do something else, right? And then I was like, oh, I gotta go home and feed. I'll be out in a minute, or whatever it was.
I can relate to that. I don't know that I like to clean the barn, but I do kind of like to clean the barn because I like the satisfaction of a clean barn. So
Yes. And when I say barn, I'm not talking about the pig barn. I'm talking about the feed barn where we had all the corn and oats and everything else. It just inevitably gets stacked up with sacks and dust and all that. I didn't like that. And my dad we had to keep it clean. So I didn't like that.
well, it sounds like you had, a ton of great learning experiences as a kid. And so as you moved out to LA, talk a little bit about how that farm background has maybe shaped your perspective in a different landscape than what you grew up.
Well, it's sort of what I said earlier. I mean, I can identify people like me, or that grew up around stuff like me, based on work ethic. And again, I am not here to say these hands are grizzled farmer hands. They are not. I can say that life is past me. I enjoy connecting with it. I enjoy the people that have chosen it to do for their life, but it's not me. So I never want to represent myself as this grizzled, hardworking farmer. But I understand what it means to be that. I know those people and I love those people, and I can portray those people, meaning know what it takes to find success every day in something, right? Whether it's fixing the fence on the back of your 40-acre cow pasture or whatever it is, or, you set a goal and you're going to get that done and you do that. So, very goal oriented as a young guy, and that carried over into my career, and just sort of the grind, right? Just rolling with the punches. I think you just learn to do that. You think you're going to make a plan. What does Mike Tyson say? Until you get punched squarely in the face. And that is my world. You think you know what's going to happen, and then you don't know. So I just think I was prepared for that with my upbringing.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, what do you enjoy most about being an actor?
Well, fancy hotels. No, I'm just kidding. I've always just wanted to make people laugh. Ever since I've been a little kid, I've just enjoyed making people laugh and creating a moment with people. I love connections. I love human connections. I love meeting new people, and being on TV and being famous, if you will, has definitely been an opportunity for me to meet a tremendous amount of strangers. People always ask, what's it like being famous? And I always say, well, how often do you wake up in the morning and think, man, I hope I get to talk to a whole bunch of people I don't know today? The good luck for me is most people are very nice. I mean, I didn't play a murderer on TV, and I wasn't in the crime shows that now gouging people's eyes out and everybody's scared to death of me when they see me in person. Most people want to say something nice to me, which is great. But at the end of the day, I am hearing a tremendous amount about people and their personal life in a very quick manner. And so I got what I wished for. I got a lot of human connection with people, which is great. And, I got to do what I always wanted to do, which is make people laugh. I wanted to be a clown in the circus when I was a kid. And I didn't make that, but I ended up performing and still perform in the biggest circus of them all, which is Hollywood. So again, full circle moment there with Fizbo the Clown, which was my character when I was a kid. And then they wrote an episode of Modern Family called Fizbo the Clown. If anybody's listening in Kansas, you remember Wizzo the Clown. He used to come to the Wyandotte County Fair, and no doubt he was a clown that I was like, well, I want to do that someday. So yeah, I think what everyone would imagine being an actor is, why somebody would want to be an actor is why I enjoy it. And then there are things about it that I don't enjoy.
So what drives you in your career every day?
Well, it's different now, doing the show for 11 years. I did that, right? It took me 13 and a half years to become an overnight sensation. I was working as an actor on tons of shows that now when you look back, you can see me in commercials and TV shows, and nobody other than my family and friends knew what I was up to. And then all of a sudden, boom, ABC, primetime, Emmy award-winning sitcom, there I am. And so I did that for 11 years, going to work and having a job every day, knowing where my next paycheck was coming from, which I didn't in the previous 13 and a half years. So now I don't know. I mean, I'm able to kind of pick and choose things that I want to do. It's getting harder and harder for me to motivate myself to leave my house and property and things that I really enjoy doing. Family, if the pandemic has been anything, I'm sure everyone watching, it's really brought the focus on what is important. And I've been home in Kansas City for the last over 14 months, and I can't think of anything I would rather be doing than being here and being able to go to lunch with my mom and go see my dad and hang out with my sister, which I hadn't been able to do in the last 20 years of being in Los Angeles. So right now I'm really content being here and just doing that, which is not my nature. You don't make it in my business ever by being content, just like I'm sure farmers listening right now, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to do things that make you uncomfortable to find the next level of success of what you want. And so right now I'm just really appreciating being comfortable and being content and not worrying about what's next. But I just did do a show, like I told you, that will be on in January, which will be great for all for families watching. You guys you're going to love it. It's very, very cool what this show is.
That sounds like a really, really good place to be right now. Yeah, that's pretty exciting.
Well, very cool. Thank you guys so much. Thanks again to Jennifer for agreeing to be our Q&A moderator today. And Eric, thanks again for, on behalf of the entire pork industry, for partnering with us. I remember you standing in a pen of pigs last week saying, I defy you to find another Hollywood actor who would do this. It's well said. You are a perfect fit for this assignment, and we couldn't be more thankful to you for agreeing to work with us on it, as I know you get to kind of pick and choose what you do these days. So we're glad that you wanted to get back to your roots and work with us, and we can't wait to see the videos come out. So thank you so much for being with us today and partnering with us. And thanks to everyone for joining us on this webinar. Make sure you stay tuned to the Pork Board communication and social media so that you can be among the first to see these videos when they come out. I know you won't be disappointed. Thank you again.
Thank you. See you all. See everybody. Bye, Walker.